Could have the... We're going to have one item which we wanted the papers for, and that was the Galloway Viking Horde, and I've agreed to quick submission from Councillor Scobie on another matter at the tail end of the meeting. Sederunt, apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got 4 apologies this morning from Councillors Gilroy, Marshall, McClung and Wiper. We've got 3 councillors currently not present, being Councillor Fairbairn, Nicol and Maitland.
Right, they're in the building, I think. Any declarations of interest? No. Minute of the meeting, 1st December. Happy to propose this as a true record.
Happy to second.
And I propose consultation removal of public call boxes in the Dumfries and Galloway area by BT. Let's just stress it's BT that are doing this, not us. And you know, at the end of the day, we have had quite a number of representations made by local communities, and all we are doing is passing them on to BT. We are not making any comment on them ourselves. If the communities are asking us to pass these on, we will do so. I think there's a couple of extra ones that have come in late. I'm well aware that Annandale and Estill Area Committee will be discussing this tomorrow, but I think there's 1 or 2 items of interest that might be raised today. Have you got anything to add to the report, Liz?
Yes, if I could just highlight, we've had, as you suggested there, a couple of additions to the phone boxes that community councils or other community groups would wish to adopt or object to the closure. Obviously, as you said, Annandale and Estill, which is in Appendix 1, is being discussed tomorrow. There's no changes proposed to that. In terms of Nithsdale, Appendix 2, which is on page 13 of your papers, we've been advised that just 4th from the bottom of that page, that Lochfoot, Dumfries, if we could change that consent to adopt, because the Community Council would wish to do that. And also Kirkland Road to Regals, Dumfries, consent to adopt. That's 2 amendments there. And on page 15, just 4th from the bottom, Colvend, the Community Council would like to object to that closure on the basis that there is poor mobile phone coverage. And High Street, Dalbeattie, if I could change that to consent to adopt, because the Community Council intimated yesterday that they would like to adopt that one. And finally, on page 17, 4th from the top, Bladnoch, Wigton, again, if I could ask your approval to consent to adopt that, because the Community Council have indicated an interest. And I think the fact that these additions have just come in the last few days has highlighted that the profile of the consultation, which is led by BT, has not been something that communities have found perhaps easy to negotiate. Although BT, and you may have seen the notice here, this was put on every phone box last August. The list was included in the weekly planning list in October. We sent out the area committee papers with the list to all community councils and advertised that. And then most recently, we sent out this paper with the appendices to community councils. So I think the council has tried its very best to highlight the consultation and the proposals to community groups. But clearly, the profile of that has taken some time to come through. So that's why we have a number of suggested amendments to what's in front of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Liz. Archie?
Thanks very much, Chair. And obviously Annandale and Estill are meeting tomorrow, and let's say there's no change to that. There's no change that Annandale and Estill will be meeting tomorrow. There will, however, may be some changes within the actual list. And I'd like to put up front quite a few where there is a lack of mobile coverage, and I think BT have been lacking in their communication with communities with regards these telephone boxes. So for instance, in Borland and Lockerbie, there is no mobile coverage, and the reason I say they have not only a communication issue, they've got a health and an economic issue to deal with here. In Borland, for instance, the phone was used while a gentleman actually had a heart attack in the village hall and nobody could use their mobile phones because there are no masts in that particular area. And perhaps it's a letter to BT to say, get a grip of yourself and get some BT masts in here. Because obviously the broadband coverage is just as bad up there as what the mobile coverage is. The telephone exchange at Estill Muir, of course, another area where there is no mobile coverage, Harelaw and Canonby. Boholm, there was 200 calls made for the telephone box last year. Again, an area of low mobile coverage. And Forge Head, Canonby is one as well. But that's the Annandale and Estill ones that are certainly within my particular ward. But I have to say, I think the advertisement of the communication by BT was not the best, even though there were some things put in telephone boxes. Some of those areas, of course, don't have any usage at all in the telephone boxes, so why would somebody actually go to a telephone box and see it if they're not going to use it? So the coverage was ridiculous, but I think also BT needs to be understand that they've not only got a communications issue here, they've got a health and an economic issue with regard to this consultation.
Jane and John Sy.
Thank you very much. My apologies, Chairman, that I was late. I was unable to declare an interest at the time. I'd like to declare an interest in that a family member owns the land on which the telephone box in Dundrennan sits. And if you would permit me, on Appendix 3, I will absent myself at that point.
Well, I wasn't going to take the appendices one by one, but we appreciate you come from a landowning aristocracy. Councillor Syme.
Thanks, Chair. My apologies for bringing this just now, but Kirkconnell and Kilhome Community Council didn't have the opportunity to discuss this till their meeting last night due to holidays and other things. And they wish just to report that the one at Main Street, Kirkconnell especially, of the two in our local area, also has very poor coverage in the area. Also, I was wondering, there's quite a few calls made to that one compared to some of the others, and I was wondering how many of these were emergency calls. And the other fact is that a lot of people in our area still can't afford like mobile phones, and this is their only opportunity to use a phone, especially in emergency. I'll just go on, and the fact is as well, it is an A76 and a trunk road, where there's no other, anybody passing through that urgently needs to use a phone, there's no other opportunity for about another 100 mile, I would say. And the other sort of point they brought forward was concerns about what happened to the boxes once they did go redundant. We don't want them to be used as a public toilet and be vandalised and that, because at present when they're in usage, they do get cleaned and inspected, and we don't want that to happen if they did just to sit there and waste and look unsightly. If it's all right, me passing that on behalf of Kirkconnell and Kilhome Community Council.
I mean, I believe they're going to take the box. As soon as the phones are taken away, taking the boxes away as well, unless the community want to keep them. As some communities have indicated, I think one or two communities want to keep them for keeping defibrillators in, and I think there was actually one down Cumbria that used a kind of village library where people put their paperbacks in, take them away and swap them over, that kind of thing. So if the communities want to keep the phone boxes will be kept, otherwise be taken away. Willie?
Chair, just clarification for this in terms of the only one that appears there on page 17, Appendix 4, the Belmont Road Stranraer. I thought that we were going to do a check in terms of the distance between that phone and then again the nearest being, I believe, Fairhurst Road. They were going to check that out.
Sorry, which
Distance.
one?
Page 17 of 34, we did discuss this item at the area committee. You were present, Liz, and it was the Belmont Road one in terms of its distance that it was being reported as, and we were going to clarify that position, whether indeed, you know, it was the distance that was being suggested. So okay. I think, you know, given it, you know, it seems to pretty much, you know, to take away one from the whole of Stranraer. So I think if it is at all possible for this committee to object to that one. Just on the consultation, Chair, and taking on board what Liz has said in terms of the quality and standard of consultation, and I think as a committee from a strategic point of view, then we should look at this in terms of public bodies, not although the council would follow, although we've got a standard to reach, but there are other public bodies that don't come anywhere near the standard that we strive for, nor indeed when we've heard in terms of BT, do the utility companies come anywhere near to that. And I think that we should be raising this with the Scottish Government in terms of legislation, so that these public bodies and utility companies do reach or meet a standard that they must comply with. And it's no good us complaining if we don't do anything about it. And I would hope this committee, either through P&R or whatever, that we raise this as an issue to be raised with the Scottish Government in terms of setting legislation. That there is not an expectation, but they must reach the standard set under legislation.
Perhaps to try and take these in the order in which they were raised. First of all, no, we don't have a breakdown of 999 calls. BT don't keep that as part of their monitoring. In terms of the criteria that we can object to a closure, unfortunately, our views about whether or not it's a safe issue or whether or not it's a convenience issue, say at the trunk roads, is not something that falls within the criteria. Item 3.2 indicates the criteria which are the basis on which we can sort of effectively veto a closure. But certainly happy to make these points going back to BT about these areas. In terms of the Belmont Road Stranraer, BT's position is that that does fall within their criteria, so it is valid that it can be closed. And in terms of the phone boxes, yes, BT do take them away, and indeed one of the community councils asked us about the plinth that they're on. You know, can we be assured that what BT leave behind is, it's made good essentially, so that there's not a sort of concrete plinth eyesore left after they take the phone box away, and we have been assured that it is left in an acceptable condition. And I'm sure communities will make sure that that is the case and advise BT otherwise. In terms of the actual consultation process, I think it would be fair for us perhaps to make some representations about that based on our experience over the last few months. And you'll see in 3.1 that the regulation actually comes from Ofcom. And that's where I think that we would direct our comments about how they've gone about the process. So certainly happy to take that up with Ofcom.
There's just, Liz just covered at the end there, I think this is a reserved issue. It's if we lobby anyone, it's Westminster or Ofcom.
I think that we can't, that's where they did their consultation, and they sent it to planning for some reason. That's the rules they've got to work under, why it goes to the planning department, who then sent it out in their normal weekly planning list. And that's when I picked it up, and it was very, very obvious. I attended a couple of community councils who hadn't even noticed it was there because of the way it was put in by planning. But at the end of the day, consultation process is BT's. All we're doing as a council is facilitating it. We're not recommending the closure. If anything, we've consulted and we're passing the consultation back to BT, and it's up to them to decide which ones they will pay attention to and which ones they will ignore. But at the end of the day, it's down to BT. And I've got to stress that the council plays no part in this. I think there was one element the media had a very misleading story that the council was recommending closure of phone boxes. Totally untrue. We are not recommending the closure of anything. This is BT that's doing this. Are members happy to accept the recommendations? No. Sorry, Stephen?
So it was just actually on the last point there, and I'm just thinking obviously there'll be a new council after May, and very much the spirit of the community's philosophy is to work in partnership with other agencies, some of which are under the auspices of the Scottish Government, some of which are UK Government. It might be helpful especially for a new intake of members, to actually maybe have a seminar so that we understand when it is we should lobby UK Government, when it is we should lobby the Scottish Government, so we can target more effectively our efforts and get best value in that way, so that we know who we're dealing with and who's responsible for the agencies.
I think that's actually been covered at the moment. I don't know if your group's already had a meeting with the council administration side about inductions for new members, etc. So I suggest when Jodie visits your group, you can raise that there, because that's a matter for them, not us. Brian?
Thanks, Chair. It's back to 3.1 again. I did raise it at Stewardship Area Committee, this matter of the direction coming from Ofcom, and that there should be an expectation, in my opinion. Ofcom's direction is lamentably deficient in serving the interests of the rural areas. There should be an expected level of provision made, as I would suggest, a qualifying level that gives the right for a company to go forward and bid for the more juicy contracts for the urban areas by having addressed not spots at a reasonable level in the rural areas. So I believe that Ofcom has fallen very far short of giving a service to the service user, and is loaded very much in the provider's camp, to the detriment of the user.
We're going to be contacting Ofcom anyway, so we can see what their remit actually is and what, if any, influence we can have. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, and when I refer, I did not make any criticism of the Council's position on this, although through the Council in general, then there has been issues raised in terms of the level of consultation that we have entered into in different subject matters. What I'm saying here, I know that the head of legal services is coming forward with a paper, a report on consultation and process and so forth. And all I'm asking is for this committee to note that, but not only note it, but feed through that there are concerns with public bodies and utility companies in terms of their level of consultation, so that it can feed into this report, and thereby, if it's required, then it can be lobbying. Let it be on a reserved matter or a devolved matter, but I think it's to improve the standard of consultation that the communities receive.
Well, if there's a paper coming up, we're going to the Policy and Resources Committee, and that would be the appropriate time to discuss any liaisons with outside bodies. It's no matter for the Communities Committee, so I would suggest we can deal with it there. Are members happy to accept the recommendations? Andy?
It was just in 2.2, that should actually read as amended, Appendix 1 to 4 as amended by the updates Liz gave us verbally. As long as that's taken as read, that's fine. Okay,
members happy with that? Thank you. Move on to item 5, refocusing the community safety team, report by Head of Civic and Local Services. Council is committed to keeping our community safe, and we have priority to protect our most vulnerable people. The establishment of the Communities Directorate has been a catalyst for presenting proposals to refocus the community safety team. The removal of the commissioning and delivery split is already providing opportunities to prioritise our prevention and early intervention work. There's also been changes in demand for our services as a result of RSLs taking more responsibility for the in-house management of their own antisocial behaviour casework. And the proposals in today's report provide opportunity to ensure we improve public awareness of the community safety team as a community asset targeted at keeping people and communities safe. And Martin Ogilvie will take any questions on the report. Members? Mr. Bell?
Thanks, Chair. So it's on 3.18. It's obviously it's about collation of information, parking, fixed penalty notices, flag tipping, incidents per ward. Obviously, elected members will get fed into through area committees on the hard work the community safety team are doing. But at the end of the day, the general public need to know what's going on as well. The information is not getting across to the general public. It's maybe coming to community councils and elected members, but the general public want to know how many people have been caught littering within the ward, say North West Dumfries or the Nif ward. They want to know how many people have been issued for dog fouling fines. Because at the end of the day, the public want to know, and the strong message needs to be sent out to the public. We're actually catching these people, we're actually fining them. But at the end of the day, we've got this PR exercise and it's not working there. It's working with elected members, but it needs to filter down to the general public. So I think we need to a different strategy, maybe in the local newspapers every so many months to say, well, we've got 4 people dog fouling in this ward, we've 4 people in this ward, we're 5, we're up. We're actually getting on top of it. But we need to send this strong message out, Chair, and I think the members of the public and the community and the members of this committee know the hard work the community safety team going of what they're doing across the region. But just this issue has been going on for a long time, and I think we've got to publicise it.
I mean, we do provide that information to all 4 area committees twice a year on what the community safety team are up to, how many fines are issued for dog fouling, etc. With the best will in the world, we can't force the local press to report that. It's maybe not sensational enough for some of them. So at the end of the day, it's entirely up to the media how they report things, but the information is there, and obviously in between times, I'm actually going to the rugby club this afternoon to publicise the fact they don't like people allowing their dog to roam all over the rugby field and foul that. So there's ongoing bits of publicity that other elected members do as well within their communities and hopefully engage the press with. But at the end of the day, you can provide all the information you want, but if the media don't pick it up, then there's not a lot you can do about it. Andy?
Thanks very much. I'm referring to page 25, and it's the improvement actions at 1A02 and 1A03. And it kind of touches on what Councillor Bell was saying there, but I remember sitting in this committee, or the previous committee for this, where we looked at the survey and the hard-to-reach communities, because when we looked at the postcodes, it wasn't in the hard-to-reach communities where the respondents were. And I can't see anything in here that addresses how we're going to get to the hard-to-reach communities rather than just a scattergun approach across the whole region. So what specific things are we going to put in place, and when can we see the action plan for the information campaign? Because that's the crucial part. There's no point having 1,000 respondents from one postcode in Dumfries and having 10 or 15 from another. That doesn't give us a reflection of what's happening in the borough, for example. And I would welcome somebody to come back to us and actually show us how we're going to do that. And I appreciate that this team have just taken that responsibility on relatively recently. So I'd welcome it quite quickly.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a bit of work to be done still in terms of getting into the hard-to-reach groups. We know we've had a better uptake this year with a lot of the responses to the community safety survey because we had the support of the RSLs. But again, that in itself might skew the results in a particular way. So we need to be better at trying to use all the different channels that we have to try and get out and communicate with the groups and encourage them to respond by sending back the returns. But also, of course, at the end of every patrol, at the end of every shift, the officers themselves come back in and spend quite a bit of time filling in their own patrol report. And it's the evidence that's gathered on these patrol reports. It's in effect a heat map that's created. So quite literally, the teams have got lots of excellent local intelligence on where there are problem areas, hotspot areas. And moving forward, it's that particular information that I want to be able to task the teams to target more particularly.
Thanks, Chair. Andy and Graham has covered pretty much what I wanted to say, Martin, but they're totally right. And you've got a really hard job because you're taking over the management of somebody else's ideas, and I know how difficult that can be. But there's just a couple of things I've noticed in the papers. You've said about, I think I picked it up right, that well, you're re-looking at the uniforms of the community safety team, which I have to say I'm glad because I've lost count of many times people has mistaken them for police. So it's nice to get that change. Another way, see when the officers are out working, how do you monitor where they are and things like that? It's just a curiosity to know that.
Yeah, I think it's important we do look at the profile of officers. That's exactly why we're considering the uniform. They currently wear sort of black fatigues and the yellow tabard. And for the vast majority of members of the public, I think they're instantly confused and interpreted as being police. And I don't think that's fair on the members of the public. I don't think that's fair on my staff. It's not fair on the police either. So I think getting that image, that kind of brand right for the staff when they're out is important. On the second point, of course, the patrols, as I said, when they come back in, fill in a patrol report. So I've got a kind of blow-by-blow account of where they've been in any day. And whereas at the start of every shift, they will go out with taskings to complete during their 9-hour shift. But there's a degree of delegation given to the staff to respond to information on the ground. In terms of hard information, I suppose the vehicles have tracking. And as we replace some of the older fleet, the newer vehicles coming in, we'll have tracking if we had to go down that route. But more or less, it's an honesty report in from the patrol officers at the end of the shift. So we know where they've been, what they've seen, what they've reported. And more importantly for them, they know there's an information loop being completed. And if they're coming back with findings, they know that the supervisors and the management and the team are responding to that information, completing the loop, and the staff are getting fed back as to what's changed as a result of that patrol activity.
Thank you, Chair. I forgot, sorry, I meant to say, just this is an observation. I was called out to Stonycat yesterday about the dog fouling, and I spoke to one of your team, and she was excellent. And quite fortunate there was somebody has been caught in the last 7 days for letting their dogs foul. But what I did notice when I was out there, which I've dealt with also, is there's no dog bins out in Stonycat at all. So that certainly probably doesn't help with the matter of the dog fouling. So I've also seen too. So, but it just shows you that these are the wee things that we probably can miss. We can all miss. And it was brought to my attention yesterday that I realised that there was actually no dog fouling bins out there. So hopefully that can be rectified now.
I was on patrol myself. I've been out with all the teams now, and I was out on patrol in Port Patrick about 3 months ago. And there's some great local initiatives taking place. I think the knitters and the crocheters down in Port Patrick have knitted sort of their own poo bag dispensers that they've tied round the harbour wall. So there's some great kind of high profile initiatives out there that the community are doing to try and encourage people to take care of their dogs and tidy up after them. It is things like that with a bit of publicity, a bit of support that I think community groups are willing to take on. And I think some of the advice from my team, if they get the engagement right, we can enhance that kind of work.
Yeah, Chair. Reference to 3.12, and again tying that into 3.14 in terms of the CST will continue to be utilised in detection activity, enforcement, casework, antisocial behaviour activity, including domestic noise, and on enhancing the safeguarding role, assuring appropriate information sharing and case management. And at the beginning of that, it's referring to the DG, the Dumfries and Galloway Housing Partnership, has undertaken a significant amount of work to get to the point now where they effectively are efficiently managing their own social casework relating to their tenants. I have no difficulty with that, Chair, in terms of a landlord looking at their responsibility in terms of their own tenants. But it's often the case, given the right to buy and so forth, that the issue could be with a tenant and an owner, a private owner of a flat in a block of flats, or the next door, whatever the case may be. So I think there is still a role for the council, and I think there's, I know there's protocol associated with that in terms of if it is a tenant and a private owner, if there is any kind of neighbour dispute. So, you know, when I look then at, and I welcome the improvement action plan or the review of the community safety team's work, and I look at, is it IA1, the first one there, IA1A01, where it says the team will geographically rebalance wherever possible to ensure we have capability and capacity to concentrate on high-risk activity, which goes on to say whatever. So it's really just to get an understanding and a clarification from the officers. What does this actually mean in terms of impact on the communities, on situations where it may not only be a DGHP tenant, but has an effect either way, if there's a tenant, private owner involved, or etc. Because in IAO 6, it refers to the refocusing services to prioritise early intervention and prevention, which I very much welcome, because there's too often occasions that I've experienced where we are waiting on the landlord getting in touch, and it's months and months and months, and then there doesn't seem to be it doesn't come over as a coordinated approach.
So I was just going to refer the councillor back to Improvement Action 06, but he mentioned it himself, and I mean, really, that is the crux of it for me. It's about prioritising, having that risk-based approach, and making sure that we publicise the services that we can offer. All of my team are trained in mediation, so if we can do an early and effective intervention at an earlier stage and mediate between neighbours that are in a dispute situation, and maybe help them solve their own issues before it escalates up to becoming an antisocial behaviour situation, I think all the better. It's about that prevention stage.
Yeah, and what I'm really looking for Martin, because I welcome both, particularly 06, and that is that we are made aware if, you know, it's to do with a tenant and a private owner. And it's really an assurance from Martin that meets an early stage rather than us being invited in way down the road when it's escalated almost out of control. It's that assurance between the CST and the landlords, not just a landlord, the landlords.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the team are wanting to be able to get in and do. And looking back to 317 on page 22, the last bullet point there, I think one of the ways that members might want to consider in future holding my team to account is better performance indicators, and particularly perhaps the number of mediations that are deemed by both parties to be successful at say, the 90-day stage. So at that point, my team would contact both parties and ask whether the problem had been, in essence, solved to both parties' agreement. And that's the kind of way that I can measure the performance of the team better as well.
Okay. Quite a number of people want to speak. Archie.
Thanks very much, Chair. I thought when Willie said about the noise thing, he was going to go into IEO 5, where it says increase the volume of community-based deterrence. But can I come back to 3.7 with regards to the review? And obviously one of the things that came in was the introduction of ward officers. And I'm just wondering, with all the work that the ward officers are now meant to be doing, because they're a one-all and be-all and one-stop shop for councillors, for community councils, for community groups, for anybody else that wants them. Have they got the capacity to support this initiative going forward? Because, I mean, obviously the ward officers are going to be really important within the actual wards. Maybe it's one for the director to answer.
Thanks for that, Chairman. Yes, I think the key point we're making is that there is a clear connection between all of these officers now, where possibly there wasn't previously. So we're not suggesting that it's going to be a significant part of the ward officer's role. I think what we're acknowledging is, to be an effective ward officer, they will have to have an understanding of the landscape that's out in that community, and therefore community safety is an important part of this agenda. So, put simply, it's certainly not an absolute core key activity, but it's an important thing that we need to have an oversight of, and we certainly believe that there is capacity for that.
Jane?
Thank you. I must admit, Chairman, the officer spoke earlier on, and I was a bit appalled. The council's finances have come to such a point that people are knitting their own poo bags. But it did actually go on to say dispenser, so I understand what's been talked about. Chairman, through you, can I ask, this proposal here, which I think is perfectly sensible, absolutely understand where it's going, I'm interested in the linkages between this and other parts of the council. And I'm particularly interested, because I think it's an issue at the moment, with respect to littering on verges and laybys. For example, the Nithsdale area of the A711, the laybys are unbelievably disgusting. They're absolutely frightful at the moment. And that has, that is a littering, that is a crime that is being perpetrated, as well as possibly perhaps not being picked up properly, but that's a separate issue. There is a crime being perpetrated, there is a prevention issue. How is this team going to link in with other parts of the council and actually get bangs for our bucks for people? Because everybody's been talking about litter and issues, so I wonder if I could have some help there, please.
Chair, yeah, this is an area where there is a need for working across, particularly our department, because clearly the community assets teams within the 4 areas have responsibilities in terms of both the communication side in terms of discouraging littering, but also dealing with littering where it occurs, whereas the community safety team generally have that responsibility for detection and enforcement. So they have undertaken exercises in the past where there's been covert cameras installed where there's a likelihood of littering occurring. There are difficulties associated with covert cameras because they're governed by the RIPSA regulations, so there has to be good reason to install. But it's clearly an issue that needs to be dealt with across the services. We do have ideas for increasing the extent to which we get the message out on littering. Particularly on the trunk roads, I would have to say that there are real issues there in terms of vehicles that pass through the region don't really have particular ties to the region and aren't necessarily accessible through the likes of mail drops to letterboxes, but we've got ideas formulating about working with the ferry companies, potentially with Transport Scotland on the trunk roads, and with the as I said, in the ferry ports in terms of getting the message out to the haulage companies and the haulage drivers about their litter on the trunk roads. One of the issues we've had over the last year or so is just clarifying responsibilities, and we're clarifying responsibilities with colleagues in E&I in terms of uplifting the litter bins from the laybys, because we're conscious that sometimes these can approach the stage where they're full to overflowing, and that doesn't help. So we're engaged in cross-departmental discussions on that issue at the minute as well.
So I'll see an improvement, will I, as I drive into to committees? Any of us coming from Dalbeattie and that sort of area, I'm sure we'll all be looking out for it.
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard that obviously one of the key roles of the community safety team is dealing with antisocial behaviour. It has to be remembered that not every victim of antisocial behaviour becomes a victim of crime. We do have mediation teams, but is there any mechanism to involve the victim support scheme and some of the ones that feel they are victims but not necessarily victims of crime?
When I was out speaking to the teams, it was apparent that I think over the years the local partnerships that were perhaps strong with voluntary sector organisations has been something that's maybe arguably been a little bit neglected. And one of the things that they want to do more is to strengthen the local partnerships that are in place and speaking to groups that can help. We do fund groups like victim support already through the Community Safety Fund, but there'll be other groups that can come in to support, and working I think with the RSLs through the antisocial behaviour group as well. They're taking their responsibilities a lot more seriously, but I think we need to allow the teams to not have to spend all their time necessarily patrolling, looking for detection activity, but to go in and work with partnerships and groups to try and do the deterrence activity in the first place. I think that's where the key to the future, bringing the number of instances down, will lie in that field, in deterrence, rather than continuing down the detection route.
If we can come back, Chairman.
Yep.
Where I agree with that, but it's really more of a formal mechanism to refer to the victim support scheme for some assistance in that. Obviously through the community safety partnership, one of the members of the victim support scheme, and they're repeatedly concerned about the level of referrals that are being made by Police Scotland. And this is one that there may be capacity that they can assist us. And I just feel that it could be looked at, a formal mechanism of reporting to victim support.
No, thank you. I think on page 21, at the top of the page, the sixth, if you like, trigger that, or the sixth reason, I think, why I thought it was timely to look at this is the creation of the multi-agency safeguarding hub. So certainly if it's a safeguarding issue, there isn't a formal mechanism at Cornwall Mount for social work, the police and other agencies to share that local intelligence. So if there's, it might be that if my team are out doing a mediation, they might be aware during the conversation that something's said, and that can be noted. And at the minute, there isn't really a mechanism for my team to feed that back in other than the embedded police officer who covers the whole team, Constable Ian Pagan. I think by perhaps formalising the route that information can be shared and having the information sharing protocols properly in place and having access to the systems, a senior person in my team can be a regular part of the early and effective intervention group and be an effective part of the safeguarding hub at Cornwall Mount, at least maybe not based there, but at least being able to attend their regular weekly meetings to share that information. There's more chances of that little snippet perhaps adding to the bigger intelligence picture. It might be that we just hold one part off, but maybe a significant part of the missing piece that helps them put in a more effective, maybe a social work-led or a police-led intervention. So it's trying to formalise these routes as well as the informal routes.
Thank you. So another 3 or 4 people. Councillor Yen.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the officers that are you aware of the hate crime issues in your questionnaires on the community safety survey?
Yes, we are. And just before Christmas, I had a meeting with one of the sergeants round at the police station about some of the new initiatives that the police want us to work with in terms of hate crime, crimes against those that are disabled, crimes against minority groups and others. So there are initiatives which, again, part of what I want to be able to release my team to go and refocus on is to be able to engage with activities and projects like that and work with the partners. One of the initiatives that Councillor Yen might be familiar with would be in terms of the prevent activity that I currently do in terms of the risk of radicalisation and working with community groups, including the LGBT Forum, the Multicultural Association, Citizens Advice and disability groups is something we've already done and will continue to work with.
Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back for a second to Jane's point about littering and Harry's response, I happened just to come to Dumfries one day last week, and the council workers, I presume it was, had been gathering litter on the A75 and leaving it in bags to be picked up by a lorry or a van or something. And I was astounded. This was between Twynham and Castle Douglas. I was astounded at the number of bags that were sitting on the roadside to be picked up, just indicating the level of littering that is taking place. And I applaud any measures which can be taken to try and stop that, but that wasn't my point. My point was, I'd like to ask Martin, and I might come back, and depending on the answer, I might come back. There is a uniform for these people, to wear at their work. Could you explain to me what the uniform is?
I basically got 2 types of officer at the minute in the team. I've got 11 community safety enforcement officers and I've got 18 community safety officers. The difference is that the enforcement officers tend to do casework, so when they're out, they tend to be in plain clothes, so they'll wear whatever's appropriate for the engagement. If that means a more casual attire, then it'll be more casual. If it needs to be more formal, it'll be formal. They'll go in unmarked cars, because if they're going to someone's house, they don't want to park outside in a council vehicle and walk in essence, looking like the community safety officers, which is the other part, and their uniform is currently black boots, black or dark navy fatigue type trousers with a patch pocket on the thigh. They tend to then wear a black top appropriate, so it could be a polo shirt in the summer, a fleece or a waterproof jacket. It does have a logo on it that says, I think Archie's demonstrating. It could be, but then the thing that I think confuses the public, and in terms of when we do the community safety survey, have you seen your community safety officers? And the returns are always so low. And when you ask the public, my team are very easily confused because then they wear the bright yellow sort of day glow vest with all the pockets and pouches. So the only thing that really differentiates them from the police is the wearing of a hat. So in terms of the public's perception, they're easily confused. I think it is right for the public, it's right for my team, that we make it clear that they're council staff and we take them out of that police type uniform and put them into something that we're consulting on at the minute, something appropriate, but it's quite clearly recognisable as they're being council staff.
If I could just come up, that was exactly my point. I happened to be coming to Castle to Dumfries yesterday morning, and there was a person in a dark clothing and a kind of yellow jacket waving furiously on the roadside, and I thought, oh, sugar, I've been caught going too slow again. It turned out to be a community safety officer, and I thought, there's confusion there, and we really need to identify them as council staff as opposed to police staff. And some of them may wish to be police staff, but they can apply for that job if they want it. But we need to really do something about this and fairly soon. And could I suggest maybe green or something that's is easily identified? I didn't say orange suits.
I think we take that on board, and I would point out, although Councillor Driver did model there, these garments are also available in smaller sizes. Anyway, moving on. Andy.
Thanks very much. I'm pleased to see they're in bigger sizes as well. Just a couple of things. I'm trying to wonder how we can focus on the balance between prevention and detection here, because there's a real danger that we can end up doing Police Scotland's job, right? And that's not our role. Our role is to supplement, I would suggest. So I'd be interested to see how Martin and his team would take forward how you're going to get that balance and get it right. Everything I've heard up to date has been positive about how that'll come into place. But it's crucial, and it's crucial that the staff on the ground know the difference. You know, what the different roles are and where the game. There's just something that kind of, in that page 26, 1A12, you know, the contribution to safeguarding, lead the counter-terrorism and prevent campaign. Well, that's not really the role of the council. We should be participating in that, and we, promoting or whatever, but we shouldn't be leading on that. Because I can't see the community warden, and I appreciate this is someone else, and it would be tiered who does what, and I'm assuming, given your background, that was what it would be. So I'd be happy to get someone on that, and just a kind of throwaway question, and I'm absolutely delighted you were out in patrol, Martin, but can you tell us, was it less or more dangerous in your previous life? It was good to see you out in patrol, but can you tell us, was it less or more dangerous than your previous occupation?
Right, on the first question, the question was about balance. I think it's appropriate, obviously, we consider getting that balance right. I think for too long, the team have been out there to do detection activity. I understand there's obviously an important part of detection, which is about, first of all, sending the message out there that it's wrong, and if they're caught, they're going to be issued a fixed penalty notice. I think at the minute, though, the balance is that it's not targeted work, and I think we need to be better at targeting the times of day when we know what happens, and we know exactly when it happens. We know that the dog filing happens first thing in the morning and last thing at night. We know that the littering happens around secondary schools, around lunchtime, and I think if we can do work to go and engage with the likes of school teachers at morning assemblies, speak to the children in the academies, and encourage the schools to take their own action. I think there's a good example in Thornhill when Wallace Hall staff are encouraged by the teacher to take it in turns and go up the high street and produce a presence there, and littering has almost stopped in the main street at lunchtime, whereas another approach up in Sanker is that they send the janitor out in the half hour after lunch break to go and tidy up after the children. So quite a difference in approach, and I think we can try and encourage some of the examples of better practice by engaging with school staff and getting the message clearly out to children as well, by targeting. So if we target the timing right of the detection activity, it will free up time for deterrence activity, and that's the promotion of good practice, the information campaigns, and the engagement that I think we should be targeting on. The second question was in terms of Improvement Action 12. The Council does have a legal duty under the Counter-Terrorism Security Act 2015 to lead on prevent activity in terms of the Council. So I'm the nominated single point of contact. So I attend and contribute to a number of initiatives which range from ensuring that the appropriate web filters are in place on all Council computers so that no member of staff, no member of the public and no pupil can access or search for certain words without the web filters coming into place and stopping that search. There are kept up-to-date lists of new search items. There's a new proscribed organisation, a far-right extremist organisation that went onto the proscribed list at the start of this month that members may have seen in the news. So that group goes on to the web filter so that anyone in any of our libraries or any of our buildings or any pupils want to search for that group, they will not be able to get through the web filters to be able to do that. There are other initiatives that I have to deliver under that single point of contact, and that is the delivery of workshops to raise awareness of Prevent. So there are initiatives taking place at twilight sessions, which is the phrase given to teacher training that takes place after the school day. And there are staff going around who are appropriately trained by the Home Office, as am I, to deliver that Prevent training. So there are a number of initiatives across the board. Tend to be quite low key, obviously. We don't want to raise too much. We don't want to worry people unduly because we're not a high risk area, but we still need to comply with the duties of the Act.
Thanks. I think you've kind of given me the answer I was looking for. So the lead counter-terrorism prevent situation, is that UK-based legislation? So is there a funding stream comes from the UK government to carry that function out? Or are the local taxpayers supposed to cover that?
The Home Office did make money available to the Scottish Government, which we applied for under the new burdens aspect of that. So during the first year, when a lot of work had to take place to get us there, we were compensated by the Scottish Government for the extra work during that first year.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. Can we develop a way, and I'm thinking of the B7076, where effectively it's a sort of overnight lorry park where next day you'll find any number of piss jugs is what I call them, but the ones with the milk cartons with it's not Iron Brew anyway. But it's an ongoing issue, and I'm just wondering, is there a way that we can develop an effective way of working with police and haulage companies and whoever the appropriate people are to contact, so that we can find a reasonable way of tackling that, because it affects the immunity of our people, and it does get reported at a lot of community councils that go up and down that road. The second thing is 3.11 on page 21. It's a beautifully written paragraph, but it doesn't really tell me what was found or what the action is going to be, and it says in time there will be an alignment of community safety officers to wards, but it really gives me the sense that we're kind of feeling our way a wee bit, and we're sort of making it up a wee bit, because the ward officers, I think, are still finding their definition, and I think community safety officers being aligned to wards maybe needs a wee bit of definition as well. When will we know that that's aligned? You know, how long is this going to take to actually get implemented fully?
Yeah, if I could deal with the point on the issue of littering, and in particular the litter emanating from haulage vehicles. As I said before, I think there's a job of work to do between the community assets team, the community safety team, and the various agencies, including the Fleet Transport Association, Freight Transport Association, and other bodies who may have greater influence than we do commercial drivers and an ability to communicate with commercial drivers. So I think that's certainly one way of approaching it, and indeed dealing with through the agencies that provide facilities for drivers, such as the ferry companies, but also the providers of lorry parks. So that's an ongoing activity. Prevention is much better than removal in the case of litter, as Councillor Nicholl referred to. The putting guys out on the verges of the trunk roads is an expensive activity, but it's one that we have to do as part of our duties as a litter authority. And that there is an extraordinary amount of refuse lifted from the roadside and put in bags on a regular basis. And it's a never-ending task, unfortunately. So the less stuff that's put out on the roadside by drivers, both of cars and of lorries, the better, as far as we're concerned. I think that's really an area where we have to concentrate for the future. I'll let Martin deal with the other issue.
Chair, the second point that the councillor brought up was under 3.11. I'll go back to the community's vision. I'm going to sort of just piecemeal take the bit from that's relevant. It's enabling communities to take increased responsibility for the prioritisation of services. It says other things, but that's the bit I'm taking from it in terms of trying to help answer 3.11. We know we do initiatives called Days of Action at the minute that councillors may or may not be familiar with, but that's taskings that are given to the team at the minute to have concentrated days when a larger number of staff will go and do a day-long project in a village or a town. At the minute, I don't think these are particularly done well. In fact, I think they're done quite poorly in the sense that there's no communication before the event with any community leader, whether that's the head teacher, any of the community sergeants that are in the local police area or ward officers or anybody. It's done by the team, and they turn up on the day, they turn up early in the morning, and they spend a long day operating in a particular village or town. I think there's a number of tricks being missed in terms of the way that we engage. First of all, I want the community groups, community leaders to be able to direct my team to where they think they need to be. I think by consulting properly and formally to say, where's the problem areas, where are the problem times. These days of action are good when I think they can be well planned. I think there are a number of things then missing around how we promote these days, and it goes back to comments that councillors have made about the promotion of activity and the awareness that these staff are actually council staff. I think we should be telling communities that, after consultation with the community councils and the ward members and others, that there's going to be a day sometime in February. We don't necessarily need to define the day, but we can do if groups want us to. And we do turn up, and we do concentrate on the areas where we know dog walkers are going to walk their dogs first thing in the morning. We do engage at the morning assemblies in the schools that day. We do have lunchtime events in the high street to promote the activities when there's high footfall in the high street. We do engage along the routes that the pupils walk from the schools into the chip shops and the sandwich shops on their lunch breaks. And we stay engaging right through to the point where dog walkers take their dog out for the last walk of the evening, and we're there to try and promote the work we're doing to try and discourage antisocial behaviour and encourage responsibility. I think that kind of activity on the days of action will be something that we can engage with communities on and help them. Help us. They can help us by targeting at the appropriate times and days. Hopefully that answers that.
Okay, I think we've had a fair crack at the whip in this one, and I think items raised by members will be taken on board by the officers. And can we accept the recommendations 2122 and 23? Okay,
Chair.
On.
Chair.
I'm sorry, I'll finish this item, Councillor Scobie.
I know, but I had my hand up.
You've already had an input. We're now moving on to item 6.
It's in the recommendations, Chair. Could I ask that in 2.1 that we add a G and take up the offer that Martin came forward with? So
Yes, Chair, just to say that the report advises members of the Council's duty to prepare a food growing strategy under the Community Empowerment Act and of the proposed project plan to deliver it. Just to clarify, the Council currently has allotment sites in the east of the region. So they're in Thornhill, 3 sites in Dumfries, Lockerbie and Annan. And there's a total of 132 allotments across those 7 sites. There's a total waiting list of about 100 people, with some overlap across those waiting lists, primarily in Dumfries. And we do receive occasional inquiries from other communities about the potential for allotments in their areas. So there's clearly potential for developing further areas of council land, potentially as allotments under community ownership or management, and that would be a key aspect of the food strategy as it is developed. However, we'd also be looking to review the potential and the appetite for community orchards, community gardens, and how such initiatives could contribute to community well-being through linkages to other initiatives aimed at improving knowledge and use of food for nutrition, and to reduce dependency on low-quality foods, particularly amongst groups and individuals affected by financial pressures. The policy intents there at 3.6 and the strategic objectives are outlined at 371 to 375. Happy to take any questions.
Archie.
Thanks, Chair. I want to thank Harry Greenfinger Thompson for bringing the report to us for this food growing strategy. I'm just thinking about what you said there previously, Harry, about moving the policy on and things like that. And I think it's right that we have a food growing strategy with allotments and all that side of things. But there's also a discussion to be had with NHS and potential options for, actually growing and cooking your own food, because it works well with the poverty side of things that we're actually trying to do within the council as well. So are there any sort of discussions that are going to look at grow your own, cook your own, and help people understand how it is to cook that as well?
Yes, Chair. The discussions we've had so far have been involved the NHS staff and also staff from third sector, Dumfries and Galloway, who are fully on board with development of this strategy and will continue to be so as we take it forward. And clearly, one of the I think it's quite an exciting potential area is moving from individuals growing their own food on their own allotments to community grown. And potentially feeding into initiatives such as community shops, where potentially you can put advice packs together for people. I mean, it sounds like teaching your granny to suck eggs in some respects, but there are families who don't have that knowledge of how to prepare nutritious food cheaply, and it can be done cheaply with fresh produce, and that's part of what any initiatives of this type can be aimed at. But this specifically is looking at the growing side of it, but clearly there's potential for linkages into the use of the product once it's grown.
Yeah, Chair, and it's particular reference to what we're saying there, how we develop the strategy. And I'm looking at 3.7, 3.71, and it's the management of our allotments. And I have beat the drum on this one before, and Liz is here, and I've spoke to Harry as well, in terms of the west of the region, in particular Stranraer, and that's to the Potters project that has got all the potential for 3.71 right through to 3.75. And I know that the ward worker has been tasked with the possibility of bringing all partners together, and I would like to see that moved forward with the support of the Communities Committee here and a report in terms of the whole strategy, but also how that strategy then impacts and how we are improving and developing the very issues of what could be the start of a quite exciting and adventurous prospect in the West, and that may be the blueprint throughout. So I'm looking for that to come forward at some time, part of the strategy in a report here in terms of how we're moving Potters forward.
Clearly this is about developing the strategy, and implementation of the strategy would follow from there.
Thanks, Chair. Really interested in this one for a few years now, we've set stuff up in Kirkconnell. I know Harry didn't mention our allotments in the list there because we've more or less done it as a community with very little input for the council. Unfortunately, when we put out a survey of what people wanted done with a certain piece of land, there was about 170 people said they wanted allotments. There's currently only 4 people using them, and they're only a £5 a year. I think it's a cultural thing, but we've used that now as a community allotments with volunteers. Last year we provided, last summer we provided the day centre with all their fruit and veg, saving them a large bit of money in the current climate. Me and my volunteer also went out and gave 130 pensioners a bag of tatties. And I think that's the way forward. But although we've done that so far, we could do with more support to bring this forward. And Archie's point, you know, what do people do with this when they get it? We've got one project through Action for Children, which is more nosh for your dosh. And we've given them a bit of funding as well through our furniture project. So it's all been community input and very little outward, but there's so much potential if we got a wee bit more support for doing what we're doing and expanding on it. So hopefully in the future we could maybe get a wee bit of support doing what we're doing up there, because, you know, as a small community and a couple of volunteers, we've done a lot, and there's so much more potential for what we're doing. And I think maybe a wee example could be learned in other parts of the ward with what we've done up Kirkconnell.
Chair, that's just one of a number of initiatives that have taken place across Dumfries and Galloway, and the intention referred to in the appendix to put together a seminar in the spring. The intention of that is to bring together a number of these types of projects that have happened in Dumfries and Galloway for the benefit of the wider community, to enable people to see what has happened, and also bring in people from other areas of Scotland and indeed the wider UK potentially, where community food growing activities have happened, been successful, and perhaps to learn the lessons from those and get community groups excited about the prospect of doing it for themselves in Dumfries and Galloway. And it has to be very much driven by the communities, because we can't just impose something on a group of people within any one particular community. There needs to be an appetite, pardon the pun, on their own part to do this. But that's very much the intention of the seminars, to get people enthused and energised about it.
We could just come quickly back on that. What I mean by support is, now and again we have been a few volunteers. Sometimes we could do with support for community payback and things like that, and it's good for, as you say, for everybody to work together. Because sometimes it's quite difficult, but we've done a lot with the resources we've got.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just actually about the identification of land in the local authority area. So there'll be land that we are actually in control of, which I'm sure we probably know to some extent which is what's going to be suitable. But I'm to take it from the report there that there'll be other areas of land which we may or may not be actually in control of, but we can identify. And is that through engagement with partners, or what does that list look like at the moment?
The list at the moment doesn't look like anything other than our own land holdings, Chair. We clearly would intend to engage with the likes of RSLs, who may well have land that they might want to make available, and indeed the potential user groups might well be living in RSL accommodation, and therefore it would be make sense for the land to be available close to where they actually live. And clearly there may also, and I think there's precedent for this, in other areas, private landowners may wish to make land available for use as either allotments or community growing sites, for either altruistic or to remove commercial burdens on themselves. So that there might be opportunities for that through private landowners as well. But clearly part of the strategy development is that communication.
I'm conscious as well that one of our main partners is NHS, who probably have a lot of land in their portfolio one way or another. Is there potential there as well?
as I said, the NHS are fully engaged in this strategy development, and there may be, well, I'm not sure what land holdings they have and what they might make available. I think there is some growing activity in Stranraer, if I'm not mistaken, but clearly there's potential if they do have land holdings elsewhere.
Councillor Yan.
Thank you, Chair. You have my full support on all of the points under 3.7. I'm really concerned about the allotment spaces and availability throughout the region, and one particularly in my own ward in Noble Hill allotment space. There are lots of people on the waiting list, and I would like you to gather the views of the people who are on the current waiting list to put it into your primary research list. That's all right. Thanks.
The point is noted, and clearly part of the strategy development will look at our current availability and the potential for further development.
Anyway, no further questions. Can we move on to the recommendations? Members happy to accept the recommendations? Okay. Item 7, any business deemed urgent with the chairman, due to need for the decision. I don't have any. Move on to 7A, Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Can we adopt the resolution to exclude the public from the meeting terms, paragraph 9, part 1, schedule 7A, Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Members agreed?
Chair, before we move on, if you don't mind.
I'd say I'd take your matter at the end, Billy. I'm moving on to business, right? I said I'd take your matter at the end. It's not an item that requires a decision.
No.
Right, can we exclude the public, please?